Okay, here we are in Flash. Just remember, if your workspace looks all strange like this, just go to Window, and you need to choose Workspace and Designer, okay? And then it'll turn back right into what you're used to with the palettes and left and right and all that stuff, okay? So what I've done here is I have 3 Flash movies, and they're all wonderful, okay? Hopefully you've done something a little bit more interesting than this. Here's the second movie, and here's the third movie, right? Now it's important that you preview each of these movies, because when you preview each of these movies by hitting Command Return, you basically create an SWF file that saves in the same place as your FLA file, alright? Once you've done that, then we can make a new movie, new ActionScript 3, here we go. And what we're going to do in this new movie is we're going to make a button, and it's going to play the movies in turn, okay? So here we go. It's going to make a quick button here. Draw a circle, right click it. You're used to this at this stage. Convert to symbol. Make sure you give it a name. Button 1. Okay. Make sure you make it a button. And like with all buttons, you got to give it an instance name as well. BTN1 will do fine. Okay, we can get into making that work in just a little bit. Okay, but just to show you the easiest way, most basic way I can think of doing this is make a new layer here. And we're going to put this animation. Oops, completely spelled it wrong. And 1. Okay, that's where animation is going to go. And we're going to make an actions layer as well, of course. Alright, so in our animation 1 layer, this is where we're going to bring our first Swift file. Okay, so file, import stage, and I'm going to bring in Swift 1. Okay, you see it comes in as a whole lot of keyframes, okay, which is very basic, but it's absolutely fine for what you guys are doing at the moment. And I'm just moving those keyframes to the right. So how I did that, just to show that again, click on the first keyframe, click with the shift key held down on the last keyframe, and move them into frame 2. And that way, that animation doesn't exist until you're in frame 2, okay? What we're going to do now in the actions layer, window actions, is we're going to pop a little stop in the first frame like we always do, and that'll stop it moving into the next frame, of course. And the next thing we do is we click on our button we made earlier, go to code snippets, and we're going to choose, as usual, timeline navigation, click to go to frame and play, just double click it. Okay, and just remove all the grey stuff there. You don't need it at this stage because you know what way it works, and change that to 2. Okay, so now what do we have? We have an imported Swift file, and it'll work when we click on the button and it plays. Okay, now if you understand everything else you did before, you can just stop this movie here. If you want to continue with me, please do. So what I'm going to do is, you notice that button is disappearing. Okay, let's keep that button here all the way along. Just right click in here, insert frame, and then when you preview it, you'll notice that the button will stay there as long as the animation is there as well. Okay, makes perfect sense, I hope. So next thing we're going to do is going to import the next one. Okay, so I'm going to go make a new layer. I'm going to insert a blank keyframe here, frame 30, say. Insert blank keyframe. So there's no other action happening, just this animation is happening. File, import to stage, and I'm going to bring the second Swift in here. Okay. Oh, and it didn't go into where we wanted it, so we need to click on the first frame, shift click on the last frame. Oops, click on the first frame, shift click on the last frame, and just move it on down to frame 30. Alright, if you need to remove any frames, same as usual, you can just click, shift click, right click, and remove frames. Alright, so we have our second animation happening here. So we're going to need a second button happening, okay? So I'm just going to make a new one here. I'm going to call it button 2. And just so we don't confuse the heck out of ourselves, I'll call this layer here button 1. And I'll put the button layers together, close together, and so we can see what's going on. Bum, bum, bum. One moment. So we got button 1 and button 2 on top of each other. And I'm just going to draw another button down here for button 2. Okay, and just going to right click that, convert to symbol, and we call this button 2, BTN2. Okay, everyone okay with that? Give it an instance name up here as well, and on this button we're going to tell this to go to frame 30. Okay, so we have our code snippets here. We can just go and double click and go to frame and play, and we can choose frame 30 this time. You can delete all that grey stuff if it annoys you, and then you'll see, look, we've got a stop at the start, a stop in the first frame, which is where we are right here, and then we've got a button 1, an event listener, and go to and play 2, and button 2, an event listener, listening for the click, and it's go to and play frame 30. So that should work absolutely fine. We'll just preview that and make sure it behaves itself. Okay, and that'll go to the next. Absolutely fantastic. Now you'll notice when we click on the first button, it's going to play both animations, and we need to fix that. Okay, and that's an easy fix. So what we can do is here, if you understand, after it plays the first animation, it needs to go back to the start. So we need to put a little action in here. Insert blank keyframe, and window actions if you haven't already got it turned on here. And we're going to go to and play. Now look at the upper and lower case here. It's very important you have that written correctly. And 1. Oops, excuse me. 1. Okay, so that means that it'll return after it plays here. It'll return back to the first frame. So look at that there. Button 1 plays the first animation. Button 2 plays the second animation. Now you'll note that button 1 is disappearing there when the second animation plays. Easy fix again. You see here where we have button 1 here. It's stopping on frame 25. We need to continue that all the way along. So insert a keyframe here. Insert a frame. Doesn't need to be a keyframe. And then the two buttons, button 1 and button 2, are there for the whole amount of time for the animation. Alright, so there we go. Now, just to bore the heck out of you, I'm going to do the third button. You can log off if you want. So we're going to make a new layer here. BUTTON3. Okay, and go back to the first frame. Very important to go back to the first frame because that's really where we want to deal with the buttons and we want the information to load. We can draw, obviously we can draw any shape in here. It doesn't really matter at this stage. This is just for getting you guys understanding how it works. Right click that, convert symbol, make sure it's a button, BTN3, okay, hit OK, and again give that guy an instance name up here, BTN3, okay, job done. And where we're going to bring our next animation in, well, we will call it, just change that layer name, anim2, and let's make animation 3 on the next layer, new layer, animation 3, and what we'll do is we'll bring it in, file, import to stage, bring our next guy in, next Swift comes in, fantastic, and you'll see like we had the last time, we got to move these guys, shift click first frame, shift click the last frame, you'll select them all, then you can just click and drag and move them wherever the heck you like. So frame 60 sounds good to me. Okay, so then we just got to deal with the buttons. So let's have a look. Button 3 is this guy here. Okay, now remember I'm in the first frame. It's important that all this information from the actions is loaded up in the first frame. Otherwise it won't work quite as well, right? So code snippets. What are we looking for? Time and navigation, and click to go to frame play. And we're going to choose for this guy. We're going to choose frame. What do we say? 60 for me. You can choose anything you like depending on how long your animations last. So this one now go to play frame 60. And as usual, you'll notice that the button may disappear, and we need to elongate the length of time that button is there for. Okay. So let's look at this. Those buttons here, button 1, 2, and 3. Okay, they need to exist longer on the timeline. So I'm just gonna click there, shift click there, right click, and I'm gonna go insert frame. And that elongates all those three, it elongates the amount of time they appear in the timeline all the way down to the end. Okay, so those three buttons are there for the whole amount of time. There's one thing left that we need to do. If you look here, we have an action here that tells it to go back to frame 1 when it reaches frame 25. And if you want to just remember what that looks like, window actions, and you'll see it here. Where are you living? Oh, it's hiding on me. Okay, but we need to have exactly the same action in frame 53. Okay, so easiest way to do that is just click on that action and Alt drag. Okay, so you're going to click and drag with the Alt key held down, and it's going to copy that same action to here. Is that all right? Oh, there we are. There's the actions. Okay, so that is go to and play 1. It's in this frame here. It's obviously not in this frame or this frame or this frame, but it's also in this frame here. Okay, so both of these frames tell it to go back to the start. We don't need it in the very last frame because by default it'll return to the start when it finishes the animation. So we'll just check that here and make sure it all behaves itself. Okay. Click first button, that plays, goes back to the start. Click second button, that plays, goes back to the start. Click third button, that plays. So there's 3 bars, 3 Swift files, all brought into one. And it is not going to stop for me, is it?